the latest in spring training, plus your mailbag questions up next on a Kokomo Friday.
Alcantara, Soroka, you look so good in Boca. Peralta, Manoa, bounce back for Aaron Giolito, Castillo, Yoshida, Mosu, Carlo, and Fado. Value so high, but ADP so low. Frank Clubs, hit some kind of Joe. Now let's get on with the show.
Happy Kokomo Mailbag Friday, and welcome in to Fantasy Baseball today on February 28th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White and Chris Towers. Today on the show, we will get you the latest spring news and Statcast data from Thursday's action, and then your mailbag questions. Chris, I love the shirt, buddy. You got it. You got it right.
I mean, I'm going on a little vacation this weekend, so gotta kick off vacation weekend right with some Kokomo Friday. Let's go.
If he got it right with the Hawaiian shirt, then I got it very wrong with the plain black shirt.
Everybody on the top of this podcast, Scott, I've got the lights behind me. I tried to change it up for a little Kokomo theme. We're ready. We're ready.
Yeah.
You didn't get the memo.
I got the plain black shirt. I got the very brown and gray room behind me. But you know what? Little beach painting here.
Ocean vista behind you. Yeah. The one guy who lives in paradise. We see Frank and I have to have a tropical mindset too. Actually, it's been like 50 degrees all week.
It was nice.
It's been amazing. I am one of those people now that it gets above 50 and I'm like, let's bring out the shorts, baby.
Yeah, there you go. All right, let's hit some news and notes before we get to your mailbag questions. And first up, cross your fingers. Hope everything's all right. Gunnar Henderson was removed from Thursday's game with lower right side soreness. Apparently, he suffered the injury while catching a line drive. He hit the ground pretty hard, and he'll undergo an MRI, but is expected to be fine. I think it was optimistic, a good sign that it didn't come on like a swing, like hurting his oblique or anything. But any concern here with Gunnar Henderson?
Oh, they did decide he was going to go on have an MRI. That last I saw, they said he wasn't going to have an MRI.
That's just from the CBS Player News, Scott, so I could be wrong.
Okay, I'll double check because that.
Yeah, I saw the same Scott said.
Relieved my concerns that there was no plan for an MRI.
It does sound like it's not a concern from everything that I've seen. And, I don't know how much an MRI costs, but maybe they'll just do it just to make sure.
Yeah, everything's saying no MRI, all the beat writers. So, I mean, it could always change he'll be reevaluated tomorrow. But as of now, they're saying no MRI for Gunnar Henderson. I'm not inclined to move him down unless we hear of more worrisome news than that.
As somebody who has the 6th overall pick in TGFBI, kind of hoping I get Gunnar Henderson. So everybody else listening, stay away. He's hurt. You don't want to draft him. But
by the way, I got the first pick in my TGFBI league. I ran the probability on that. It's less than 1% in a 15-team league getting the first pick 2 years in a row. So it went horribly for me last year because that first pick was Ronald Acuna.
Yeah.
But hopefully it goes better this year.
Good thing the consensus number on overall player is coming back from shoulder surgery.
Yeah,
so that should work out for you.
I think I'm going to take Bobby Witt, but I think Shohei Ohtani's supposed to make a spring debut Friday. If he hits a bomb in that game, that'll already get me rethinking.
Actually,
I'll be honest.
If he steals a base, that would probably be
even more.
Even
more. Yeah.
Earlier today, I recorded a podcast with Jeff Zimmerman that's coming out on Saturday, and we were talking about his mining the news article that he does. And there was a tidbit in one of his articles that said Ohtani is still kind of feeling the effects of his shoulder injury. I'm like, that just kind of got swept under the rug. But then I asked Jeff, if you're only playing in one league and you had the first overall pick, who would you take? He still said Ohtani. So
that's an interesting one. Yeah. If I only had one pick, would I have the guts to pass on Shohei Ohtani? That's a slightly different question.
If you only had one pick,
if you only one league and you were picking first in that,
Well, I don't know. I think that would actually, if it's your only league, that would raise the pressure to get it right. I feel like, because sometimes we take
it right.
If we playing in a dozen leagues, sometimes we take bigger risks.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, I want to have a chance at having that super team. But if it's your only league, you don't want to just be out of it. I don't know. You get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yep. Back to the Orioles. Jordan Westberg is dealing with lower back soreness, but is expected to return within a few days. Please be okay. We can't have another player we love getting hurt. Bryce Harper will return to game action Friday. He left Wednesday after getting hit by a pitch on his right arm. James Wood will serve as the Nationals DH on Friday. It will be his first game action of the spring. He was dealing with left quad tendonitis. Felix Bautista threw approximately 25 pitches Thursday in his second live batting practice session. Apparently, he recorded 3 strikeouts in 7 plate appearances. So, all good news so far for Felix Bautista. Carlos Estevez is dealing with mild lower back tightness. Their manager, Matt Quattraro, believes there's still plenty of time for Estevez to appear in 6 to 7 outings later in camp before the season starts. While we're talking about the Royals bullpen, apparently they plan to use Lucas Erceg in the highest leverage spots in 2025, whether that be the 9th for a save opportunity or the 7th inning. And that Ann Rogers, who covers the Royals for MLB.com. So do you do anything to your rankings of Estevez or Lucas Erceg reading that?
I'll have to read the full article rather than just the can't think of the word for it, but rather than just the player update, I want to read the full article, see if I can read a little more nuance in it. But if it is so that really 9th inning, 7th inning, if it's the highest leverage situation, they're going to use Erceg, then it stands to reason that would most often be the 9th inning, right? Like, normally that's what we say when a manager says he's going to use a certain reliever in this way. Well, he'll probably get the majority of the saves then.
Yeah, I mean, I would think it probably becomes not a committee, but not one guy getting all the saves, right? Like, if it's truly that's how they want to use it, the problem is, how do you figure out what the highest leverage situation is? You can have a high leverage situation in the 7th inning and then use him. And then a higher leverage situation could come up in the 9th inning. So that's, I would, based on nothing else but that, if I was just going to go on that one report, I would guess 60-40 Erceg. But that runs counter to what we expected before that report. So I'm not just going to throw my priors out completely.
Yeah, it sounds almost like the way Rocco Baldelli uses Yohan Duran. And it's hard for me to imagine Erceg getting that big of a share of the saves, but yeah, I don't know. Aggregation was the word I was trying to think of before.
Yeah, I'm trying to skim through the article now and see if, that kind of feels like the gist of it, but I'll tweet out the article afterwards and people can read it themselves as well. Zach Neto will not be ready for opening day, but should make his season debut soon after that in April. Nico Hoerner will not travel with the Cubs to Japan for their 2-game series starting on March 18th. He's still rehabbing flexor tendon surgery he had back in October. They're saying Hoerner still has a chance to be ready for the team's domestic season opener on March 27th. Are you guys moving Neto or Nico Hoerner knowing they won't be ready for their respective opening days?
No, I think that's what we expected. Certainly for Neto, if anything, this was an optimistic report for him. That it sounds like he'll be there, I would imagine, within a week or two of opening day, soon afterward. But for Hoerner, it seemed like the Tokyo series was always a stretch since it's more than a week earlier. They haven't ruled him out for like the league-wide opening day. Most
it sounds like there's a pretty good chance he'll be ready for the real opening day.
And
from what I was reading, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I assume most fantasy leagues aren't even counting the Tokyo series, so it's irrelevant to them. Yeah, I'm still pretty optimistic about Hoerner, but I have been all along.
I think I'm more optimistic about Horner than Neto. And from what I was reading, it sounds like the main reason Horner won't go to Japan is they want him playing in games. They're still going to have 5 spring training games after their season debut. They will not have a lot of major leaguers in them, presumably, but they want Horner to get a few games in before the start of the domestic opening day. And so I think this is a pretty optimistic sign about his chances of being ready.
Brandon Woodruff threw a simulated game of about 30 pitches on Thursday. I feel like there's been some not so good news about where his velocity is sitting coming back from shoulder surgery. It's just such a tough injury to come back from. Do you guys think Woodruff is ready for opening day? Do you target him as a late round option right now?
I really don't. The injury has such a poor track record. I think he's going to end up missing most of April. I know that's what the estimate on our site is. I don't know that there's a report that makes it that concrete, but just given how far behind he is, it makes sense. He only went for $5, Brandon Woodruff, in our NL only auction. And it's not like I was pulling my hair out because I didn't have an extra $1 to go 6 on him. I was happy to let him go for $5. My expectations are pretty low.
Chris, are you ready for the SodaStream again? Because the A's are open to Tyler Soderstrom serving as their backup catcher this season.
That would be cool.
He's also projected to be their starting first baseman. So majority of the time first base, maybe as the backup catcher here or there. There's a chance we could get catcher eligible Tyler Soderstrom.
Yeah, that would be pretty neat. I've been pretty uninterested in Tyler Soderstrom outside of AL only leagues because
I like him.
The standard for catcher is just so much lower. And the standard for first base, even in a relatively weak period for first base, is so much higher. But there are legitimate skills here. I mean, he, didn't play a ton last year, but XBA was 240, X slug was 480, strikeout rate was a very manageable 25%. I think it's a fringy profile at first base, even in a best case scenario where you're probably looking at a corner infielder. But if he does get catcher eligibility and he's playing pretty regularly at first base, that's a much different thing. And so, yeah, I think as a late round target, especially in a 15-team league, as a bench option, Tyler Soderstrom makes a lot of sense just because maybe he becomes a corner infielder, but if he becomes catcher eligible, there could be some real upside there.
Yep, that's probably reason enough to take him ahead of Kyle Manzardo and maybe even Jonathan Aranda, as much as I like Aranda.
Yeah.
I've kind of been grouping those 3 first basemen together is just high upside guys who seem like they're at least going to be the better half of a platoon. But if Soderstrom has a good chance of picking up catcher eligibility in those 2 catcher leagues, that's big. That could be big. I had a chance to read the Lucas Urseg article as Chris was talking, and it seems pretty straightforward that that's how Ann Rogers, the MLB beat writer for the Royals, was laying it out as highest leverage spot, regardless 7th, 8th, or 9th. I mean, does that mean we should be taking Urseg ahead of Estevez? Do you guys want to go as far as to make that switch in your rankings?
I think Ursig is the better pitcher.
Me too. I was upset when they signed Estevez.
I don't know that I buy it.
I don't know that I do either.
Well, I think based on the money they gave Estevez and his experience as a closer, I think they probably start that way.
So here's the thing when you're talking about these kind of reports. There is kind of levels to it, right? There is the manager is quoted as saying, this is how we are going to use this guy. And even if that was the case, this would still be a kind of squishy report because it's well, we're going to use him. And it's not saying he is our closer.
Right.
But it would, that would be something that I would move on. And then there is all indications are, or the team plans to use, where there's not a direct quote from someone, but it's clear this is from somewhere. And then there's just, this is what I think they will do. And that's informed speculation, certainly, but it's not it's not sourced from anything. So I don't know. I haven't read the report you're talking about.
Okay, so this is the key sentence. It's the beat writer's own words. She says that's what the Royals plan on having the 29-year-old righty do again this year, deploying him in the biggest spots and the highest of leverage. That might be in the 9th inning for save opportunities, or it might come in the 7th or 8th.
So that's the
having
second
Estevez
one?
helps Quattraro be able to do that. So yeah, it sounds like it's the second one where she's not just speaking kind of off the cuff. It sounds like she's actually heard something, but it's not a direct quote either. So I think if nothing else, I got to move down Estevez.
Yeah, I think they're both probably outside the top 200
with as much confidence.
Yep. Andrew Benintendi was diagnosed with a fractured right hand and will miss 4 to 6 weeks. One of, wait for it, Joey Gallo, Austin Slater, or Michael A. Taylor could see time in left field for the White Sox. Matt Vierling is dealing with a right shoulder injury and has not played since Sunday. I saw an update that Wenzel Perez could see more run in the outfield for the Tigers, with both Vierling and Parker Meadows banged up at the moment. Some Statcast data from Thursday's action. Clay Holmes looked good once again. 3 innings of one-hit ball. He mixed in that new cutter, 4-seam, and changeup once again. Sinker velocity was down 1.8 miles per hour, which I think should be expected going from bullpen to starter, but that's now 5 one-hit innings so far this spring. Tristan McKenzie, velocity up again, way up, over 3 miles per hour on his fastball and slider. He got bombed. He recorded 2 outs. He gave up 3 runs on 1 hit and 5 walks. So.
Yeah, it's the 5 walks. He didn't get hit hard. He just couldn't find the strike zone. So, I wrote a spring training, believe it or not, that came out today, just kind of looking at some early spring storylines. I'm going to be doing that every Friday. And Tristan McKenzie should be on the late round sleeper radar, was one of them. And I believe it. And even after this, I believe it, because he averaged 94.5 miles per hour in this outing. That matches the highest he's ever thrown. And he talked about last year just not feeling comfortable throwing after the elbow injury in 2023, excuse me. And look, it's not a guarantee that he's going to be good, but I'm still willing to put him in the late round conversation. It's not, there are other late round targets that I prefer. He's not a top, I'm not even sure he's a top 300 player for me, but in a 12-team league with a bench spot, he'll be in the discussion for one of the last players I pick.
Back to Clay Holmes for a second. I mentioned I'm in a 15-team roto slow draft right now over at the NFBC. Clay Holmes went 217th overall. So this is not a points league. It's not like a Sparp situation, but 217 overall in a 15-team roto. Kind of sounds like he's climbing up. People are getting hyped about Clay Holmes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 6 shutout innings to begin his transition to the starting role and an expanded arsenal. I think he threw 6 total pitches in his last start, or 5 or 6.
6, yeah.
6, okay. And ones that seem to be intended to address Chris's concern of him retiring left-handed batters. So it makes sense. I've been high on Holmes. I've had him on my sleepers list since January. So I share in that enthusiasm. I'm trying to see exactly
you
where
said 212?
217.
217. So that's up quite a bit.
That still feels a little high.
ADP is 291.5. Let me see where I have him ranked. Clay Holmes, I have him 218. Everybody's living in my world now.
There you go. Couple other Statcast updates
or
here.
At least in that one draft you did. It was sampled one. Yeah.
Calvin Faucher's cutter was down 4.6 miles per hour. His fastball down 3.5 miles per hour compared to last year. Carlos Rodon's velocity has been down in each of his first 2 starts. Fastball down 1.7, slider and curve down 2.8 miles per hour each compared to last year. He's also just looked pretty bad in both of his first 2 starts, but it's 2 starts in spring, so maybe it doesn't matter. Giants pitcher Landon Raup threw 3 scoreless innings with 5 strikeouts. Not sure he has a path to a rotation spot. His slider was up 6 miles per hour compared to last year, if Statcast has that one correct. And Anthony Volpe hit a home run, 110 miles per hour off the bat. Any of those last notes matter? Faucher, Rodon, Landon Raup, and Volpe.
It was the hardest hit ball of Anthony Volpe's major league career. So that's a good sign. And he's one of these guys whose bat speed was up in the second half of last season. Didn't really lead to better production, but yeah, there's a chance he's the leadoff hitter for the Yankees. And, you know, he's still young enough that I don't want to say the book is completely written on him. I have a hard time seeing Volpe ever being a guy who both hits for power and hits for batting average, because even when he was am I connected? Are we good?
I don't know. It just kind of spazzed out.
All right, we're good.
Are we good? I hope.
Robo Chris.
You can hear me. I'm here.
Robo Chris.
Mine was lagging too, though, so I don't know what that was.
My train of thought has been derailed. No, Anthony Volpe, even when he was a top prospect, he hit like 250 at AA with a decent number of home runs. And I think that's just kind of, he has to sacrifice one or the other. And last year he sacrificed and got neither. So I would prefer what he did in the first season to what he did last year, but I don't want to say that the book is completely finished being written on Anthony Volpe.
I don't want to say that either, but at the same time, a 110 mile per hour home run in spring training is not.
Oh yeah, no, that's
not
still
changing anything for me.
The lowest. That's a relatively low max exit velo.
Yeah, and I know you weren't saying that. I just wanted to make it clear for the listeners.
Can I add a couple of things that we haven't talked about yet?
Yep.
One, Spencer Steer has not been cleared to begin throwing this spring. He's dealing with a shoulder injury. It has not limited him from swinging, but sounds like there's some concern about that. And I think he's expected to see a specialist or a doctor within the next coming days to just check on it. So that's one to keep an eye on, just because that's already a very crowded Cincinnati situation. And if Spencer Steer is limited to DH or first base duties, I don't think we're going to see Christian Encarnacion Strand at all. And it's going to make things difficult for Jeimer Candelario. So that's one to keep an eye on. And
Terry Francona said at the start of spring that the team, he wants Candelario to fit at third base because he thinks the team lines up best that way. Mm-hmm. So he didn't directly reference Spencer Steer's situation, but he may have had that in mind.
Yeah, and they are crowded in the outfield. Austin Hayes sounds like he's going to play a big role. So that first base might be the only path for, well, not the only path, but that might be the primary role for Spencer Steer. And then Jordan Romano made his spring debut today, and I know there's been a lot of concern rightly about him coming back from elbow surgery. He looked phenomenal. He struck out the side. The stuff numbers were off the charts. He averaged 96.5 miles per hour with his four-seamer and threw a bunch of sliders that got a bunch of whiffs. So that who knows how he holds up, but it was a very, very good debut for Jordan Romano.
All right, let's take our first break. Before we do that, thanks to everyone watching us live on YouTube. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We are on the road to 30,000 subscribers. We'll take a break. Be back right after this.
The clock never stops. Relive the greatest moments with uninterrupted highlights and more.
It's Gareth Bale! Ronaldo! Wonderful goal!
On the UEFA Champions League channel. Streaming free.
Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball today. Your mailbag questions. Up next, let's take a look at, first up, we have Apple Podcast review questions. So we will start with those. This one's from Andrew Dietz. I play in a 6x6 categories league with OPS instead of batting average, plus extra base hits as the sixth category. We have 3 keepers per team. I have 4 out of the first 5 picks. That is overkill. Whoa. But good for you. My keepers are Kyle Tucker, James Wood, and Spencer Strider on 4-year contracts. I'm planning to take Vlad Jr. first overall. The person with the second pick is leaning Matt Olson. I then want to draft Jackson Chourio and Logan Gilbert. Who should I draft as my 4th player in the first round? Remaining players, Freddie Freeman, Pete Alonso, Kyle Schwarber with outfield eligibility, Trey Turner, Jazz Chisholm, Corbin Burns, Chris Sale, Garrett Crochet. So remember OPS instead of batting average. And extra base hits is an extra category.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's probably Schwarber based on this format, but maybe Burns if you just want to lock up starting pitcher. I don't know.
cut out, and who did you say when you cut out?
Turner.
Yeah. So
Trey Turner.
The players available: Freddie Freeman, Pete Alonso, Schwarber, Turner, Jazz Chisholm, Corbin Burns, Chris Sale, Garrett Crochet.
No, who did you say?
Who did you say?
Oh,
who was your suggestion?
Who's the fella on first?
Freeman or Schwarber makes sense. And then maybe Burns if you wanted starting pitcher.
Schwarber, really?
OPS.
And extra base hits, yeah.
Instead of batting. Okay, OPS instead of batting. Yeah, okay. I mean, the problem with Freeman is there was some discouraging news that came out about him Thursday. He's going to be receiving treatment on his ankle. He kind of loosely just said through the All-Star break, probably, or up until the All-Star break.
Off.
Yeah, could sit some day games after night games. It's just it's enough to make me wonder if I should slide him down a little, like maybe behind Matt Olson, not behind Pete Alonso. Sounds like he's going after Olson in your league anyway, so that's a non-issue. Trey Turner gives you the speed, obviously. Just in typical 5x5 rankings, I know Trey Turner is my highest ranked player here.
But the switch from batting average to OPS and extra base hits, he's not going to be great in that.
Why not Jazz Chisholm?
He's not a great OPS bat. I mean, he's not a good batting average bat, so I don't know if this necessarily is a bad for him. But like, has he ever broken an 800 OPS for a full season?
I assume he had over an 800 OPS last year, didn't he?
760.
That's amazing, given the power he hit for with the Yankees. It was 825 with the Yankees.
Yeah.
Still, I mean, I don't think you need to remake the whole thing because of one category. He's not any more of a liability in OPS than he is in batting average for where he's being picked, and he gives you great production in the other categories. I don't know. I don't think there's a straightforward answer, but
I kind of lean Schwarber.
You lean Schwarber? I don't know. I don't know if that's. I don't know.
I mean, his biggest liability is replaced by two legitimate strengths.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was an 851 OPS last year, 817 in 23, 827 in 22.
Yeah,
but that was
I feel like Chisholm could do the 820 if Schwarber settles at that mark.
He could,
again.
But it would be a career year.
I think we're expecting a career year from Jazz Chisholm. I'm going to say Chisholm.
I'm going to say Schwarbs.
I still think I would go Freeman, but if I had to choose,
I could go Burns also.
Yeah, if I'm choosing between your two, I would go Schwarber, but I'm also
Strider at pitcher.
Yeah, he's got a week for Strider.
You're going to need an ace, and Strider certainly won't be that in April, and probably won't be that in May.
Mm-hmm.
So I might go Burns.
Does Freeman, the possibility of, because he's such a workhorse, he's always been a workhorse. He missed some time last year. He was away because his kid was sick, so only played 147 games. But he's pretty much right at 160 otherwise every year. That's a big part of Freeman's appeal. And if he's going to have these periodic rest days, I don't exactly know how to value him because that's taking such a big strength of his away for fantasy. I think he's still a third rounder, but I don't think he's a second rounder anymore.
Yeah. I'm going to go with Freeman. So I'm not sure how much
we have you three different answers.
Three different answers. This one is from Lurch948. Trying to narrow down my last keeper between Tyler Glasnow, Teoscar Hernandez, and Jordan Westbrook.
It was pretty perfect that Scott's phone went off right as you said Lurch. Frank, you won't get this reference, but you rang. That's a reference to a very old TV show.
You sound like a boomer,
Adam's
Chris.
Family? Is that what it is?
No, he's the Munsters butler, right? Oh, he is the Addams Family. I got them confused.
Take that, Chris.
Look at that. Frank got a reference.
So who do you guys like? Glasnow, Teoscar Hernandez, or Jordan Westbrook? Last keeper.
Without any other context here, I'm going to say Teoscar Hernandez. If there's a need to think longer term than that, I could see going Westberg over him. but I'm going to say Teoscar Hernandez based on the information I have.
Agreed.
This one is from Isaac. What's up, Kevin, James, and Russell? Not Kevin James.
Well, I know who Kevin James is.
Two different names. Kevin, comma, James, comma, Russell.
God, that makes me feel old, man. Those three guys haven't played together in like, what, 13, 14 years?
Oh, yeah, there you go. Okay,
Man, yeah.
Well, that.
Oof.
I play in a 5x5 categories league, OPS instead of batting average. That seems to be a theme today. There you go. I have the 3rd overall pick based on league talk. I know Ohtani and Witt are going 1 and 2. I'm currently watching the Red spring training game, and Elly De La Cruz is 2 for 2 with 2 home runs. Is there a case to be made for Elly over Judge? His stolen bases almost win you the category every week. And if what he said about changing his batting stance is true, he could hit close to 40 home runs. Also, tell Scott to grow a beard.
Listen,
That's good.
the whole beard thing.
Actually, I had someone sent in some great photo. They're not great, but they were funny photoshops of you with beards, and I was supposed to add them, and I forgot to do it.
So,
I liked the Mike Fires one especially.
a few. First of all, the whole beard thing has gone on too long. I've said that before. That's not a new take. As for me personally, with
Fine,
the
I'll
beard,
trim. Jeez.
I will say I've never seen my dad without a beard. He has had a beard my whole life. So the beard is very much normalized in my life because
The beard is not weird.
I can't grow a beard like that. I can do fine in the goatee area, but along the sides of the face, it's just too sparse.
I don't believe you, Scott. I think you
don't
need to
want it
do it
look
for us to believe you.
So that's the first thing. The second thing, I have a nice, well-defined jawline. I don't feel like I'm somebody who needs a beard.
Attacked.
Wow.
Like that's what they always say, right? If you don't have a defined jawline, that's a good reason to grow a beard. If you do, then show off that jawline. I got the good jawline. Why would I try to hide it? That's it. What was the baseball question?
That was some hate.
I don't know.
Hate? How was that hate?
I feel your hate.
I'm trying to
Gives you focus.
I'm trying to quickly make a Photoshop with all of these Scott White images on here while also hosting the podcast.
No, I don't think you should take Elly De La Cruz ahead of Aaron Judge. I think that would be like the dictionary definition of overthinking it. Yeah, maybe he changes his batting stance and hits 40 home runs. Maybe the same thing that happened to Corbin Carroll happens to him and he screws up his swing and he's terrible. Elly De La Cruz hits 2 home runs sometimes in 3 games. That'll happen.
His swing is much shorter. His swing looks much shorter. I'm having a hard time resisting the excitement for him, to the point that I don't know if I had the 4th or 5th pick, I might think about taking him, even though my more analytical side is inclined to put him 9th. But over Aaron Judge, that's what he's suggesting.
And in an OPS league, that seems.
I mean, that would in theory help Elly De La Cruz as well, but
not like
Aaron Judge has had a 1,200 OPS the last 3 years, and the other one was like 1,100. Yeah, he's. I think this is overthinking it. I think it's mystery box. Just take the boat.
Mm-hmm. All right. I'm still kind of working on this Photoshop here, but maybe we can come back to it. I'll get it exported and then I'll pull it up later on in the podcast. Let's get into your email questions. This one is from Garrett. Dear Konerko, Thomas, and Allen.
I mean, I know Paul Allen is a person. Yeah, he was one of the founders of Microsoft. Is Paul Thomas someone?
I was assuming Paul Konerko, Frank Thomas, but then I don't know who that Allen is.
Yeah, that's that. I don't
know. Dick Allen? Was he a White Sox? Was he ever on the White Sox? No. Yeah, he was on the White Sox for 3 seasons. He won an MVP.
Sox. Yeah, he did.
I think these are just White Sox who have led the league in home runs. I don't know what the connection specifically, but these are clearly White Sox sluggers.
I think we got the right 3 people at least.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sticking with Microsoft founder Paul Allen, and that is clearly the movie director Paul Thomas Anderson, but this guy is just very familiar with him, so he doesn't have to go by all three names.
I realize now that I didn't read the question. I know you don't dig into keepers, but wanted to ask a strategy question. We have a 2-keeper league where the players you keep represent the pick where you drafted them in the following year for this upcoming draft. I have Jackson Merrill in the 19th and Ketel Marte in the 9th. So I don't need advice on who I'm keeping. I won the league last year and also received the first overall pick this season. The rich get richer. I'm curious, with a build like that and having amazing value in bats already, would you consider going pitchers a bit earlier than you otherwise would? I know Scott has mentioned a few times he waits until the 9th or 10th to grab his first pitcher. I've started to really like builds where I go hitters at 1 at the end, the 2-3 turn, but go pitchers back to at the 3-4 turn before adding more bats. So, I mean,
I think I've said I've waited to round 8 before. I don't know that I've waited till round 9, and that's not the norm either to wait that long. Just to clear a few things up. Look, if you like those builds, go for it. It's your team. I mean, it might work. My recommendation though would be to still take advantage of getting strong. But the whole idea is I want the highest impact hitter I can at each position, and then I go for pitchers once I think all the stud hitters are gone. You have a head start with stud hitters. That's great. Means you can get even more. So that's he didn't say what scoring format it was though, did he?
Did not.
Yeah. It's easier to say that in a points league, the plan I just laid out. In a roto league where you're trying to achieve that perfect balance, I think there's probably, or head-to-head categories league, there's probably a greater argument for taking a stud pitcher if it's truly a stud pitcher. I don't know what pitchers are being kept though.
Well, that's the thing, is when you're talking about a keeper league and you say, well, 3-4 turns a little early for a pitcher. Well, Ketel Marte and Jackson Merrill are 2 of the players who are off the board. I assume there are roughly 24 other players from the first 4 round range who would not be on the board. So that 3-4 turn is more like the 5-6 turn in terms of the talent that's available. So that's a perfectly fine time to be taking a pitcher, especially because you're going to have.
The best players aren't being kept though, is the thing. It's value players being kept. Players presumably like these guys, players who were taken later last year.
But they are
turned into great.
I would say more or less you're going to have most of the players kept will be top 50 types.
I would guess there are a number of true first round bats still available in the draft.
Sure.
And you should at least make sure those are taken before you veer toward pitchers.
Sure. Yes. But what I'm saying is, like, the class of player who's likely to be available at the 3-4 turn is going to look more like the class of player who's typically available at the 4-5.
Okay.
And if you don't take pitchers in the first 4 picks in this build, effectively you're going to have 6. Your first 6 picks will have been spent on hitters. That's not technically true because it'll be your 9th and 19th, but you will have 6 hitters worthy of your first 4 picks.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not to say it's overkill. Having good hitters is great. And hitter production is more strongly correlated with winning a roto league and all those things. But I would be very inclined to take at least 1 pitcher with my first 3 or 4 picks here.
All right. Before we get to the next email, I have these Scott facial hair photoshops ready to go here. This is from a listener, Evan, who emailed them in. Thank you for sending them. So for those watching on YouTube, you get to see the glorious images here. So I'll try to describe them for those listening. On the top left, we have Scott with a Spencer Strider mustache.
Yeah, that's a Strider. Okay,
that looks like Strider.
Yeah.
The top right, we have this is Scott Blackman. So Charlie Blackman beard. On the bottom left,
that thing just looks.
We have a Mike Fiers. I'm just going to call it a Mike Fiers because I don't know how else to describe it. And then
did he have a beard on half his face like that?
He did it for like 1 start. I don't know if he lost a bet.
It was insane. Bottom right is Danny Espinosa used to rock this.
Sure.
And so it's a big burly.
I was thinking like a Doug Jones. You remember that guy? That's the mustache Doug Jones had. Ask your parents about him.
So the Strider, and what was the last one?
The Danny Espinosa.
The Strider and the Espinosa look okay on my face, but I can't grow that. I can't.
Yeah, I was just like, the Strider looks pretty good, Scott. I think you can pull it off, man.
Yeah.
All right. So,
but I can't grow it.
I mean, Spencer Strider looks like 80% of the dudes in my neighborhood in Bushwick.
I was going to say, if Scott grows one of those out, he has to move to Brooklyn. There's no other choice after that. This next one's from Travis. Question: are we reaching a bit for Kyle Schwarber this year if he's batting in the 2 or 3 spot? Are we reaching a bit for Kyle Schwarber? I mean,
I get the idea because moving down in the lineup, you lose plate appearances, but the difference between the first and the second spot in the lineup is going to be 15 to 20 plate appearances. The difference between the first and the third is going to be 30 to 40. So he might lose 5% of his plate appearances at the highest end. The shape of his production will be different, and you'd have to account for that. Like if you're counting on him to score 100 plus runs, maybe it's more like he drives in 100 plus and scores 90, but I really don't think you should downgrade him at all.
And the other thing, which I brought up before, is just because they say that's the plan going in doesn't mean they're going to stick with it. It's the same manager. It's the same personnel. It's very likely he'll say at some point, I liked the way it was looking before we changed and put Trey Turner at the top. So go back to Schwarber.
And it's the kind of thing where the first time there's like a 4-game losing streak, that's the first thing you change, right?
Yep.
Fun side question here from Travis. Not sure if you guys collect baseball cards, but if money wasn't an option, who would you invest in?
Honus Wagner.
That's probably the right answer.
If money wasn't an option.
So, I mean, you're talking about like
he said money wasn't an option. It was a great answer.
Low-end guys, like young guys who are likely to have Hall of Fame careers. Paul Skeens, Jackson Churio, Jackson Merrill.
Yeah.
The first name I thought of was Christian Campbell, but that's like thinking, I guess, a little bit further out.
Yeah.
Yep. Bobby Witt. If you could get Bobby Witt rookie cards, it seems like a good idea.
Seems like
I'm not really a card. I mean, I collected cards as a kid.
Yeah.
They are long gone. I have no idea where those are.
I have enough bad habits when it comes to collecting things, so I'm going to stay away from the cards.
I still have all my cards from when I was a kid. And because my generation heard from the previous generation about how they put all their Mickey Mantle cards in bicycle spokes and they'd be worth thousands of dollars today. And so my generation was like, well, we're not going to do that, except we all decided we're not going to do that. So they're valueless.
The cards aren't worth anything.
Yeah. My kids started collecting baseball cards. They're really into it. Not so much for the value aspect, but just to possess players and be able to arrange lineups of them and that sort of thing. My 7-year-old just today was looking at he was examining his Paul Goldschmidt card closer. And he was marveling at how good of a career Paul Goldschmidt has had and reading out a lot of the numbers. And I was like, yeah.
Might be a Hall of Famer.
I think certainly a Hall of Famer. And I knew Paul Goldschmidt had a great career, but he's there reading the numbers out loud. And it's like, wow, that is even better than I remembered.
Scott, you need to get your kids to understand the value of these cards as an investment. All right. It's never too early to start grinding and hustling.
Yeah, probably not.
I've got to get back to my parents and find the Pokemon cards. I swear I have one of those Charizards somewhere. I have no idea where they are.
Oh, we got lots of those too.
Frank, I have an answer to your question. I have no idea who I'm going to take in the prospects draft of the Scott White Dynasty League. We're in the 3rd round, and like I was at a comedy show.
League, by the way,
I was at a comedy show yesterday. I made my pick, and I was like furiously searching, and I picked someone that I don't even remember. Ty Johnson.
It was a fine pick.
Yeah, it's a fine pick, but I don't know. I've never heard of that guy.
Well, you've got 15 minutes to research, Chris, if you want to make it by the end of this.
There was another Rays pitcher who I don't think has been taken.
There's 2.
The Welsh just took a Rays pitcher, I think.
2 noteworthy Rays pitchers.
That wasn't the one I was looking at.
I guess there was 3 noteworthy Rays pitchers.
I mean, it's possible that I was just talking about a guy who's not noteworthy.
I think you're just taking nothing but Rays pitchers.
I do have 2 Rays pitchers so far, yes.
Yeah, that's your whole strategy. I don't know about that.
All right, let's take our final break. When we return, rapid fire. We've got to get through some questions right after this.
Gives it to Jenkins for the championship. A 16 beats a 1. From sweet to elite to the Final Four.
Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball Today, answering your mailbag questions. This one is from Mike. You guys have done a great job identifying later round targets, but I find myself not liking any of the available players in the middle rounds. Who are some players you like in the middle rounds of a 12-team league? Let's say rounds 10 through 13, picks 109 through 156.
I wrote about this question for tomorrow's Fantasy Baseball Today newsletter. Doing a little mailbag. So if you want to send your questions in, they may get answered on the Fantasy Baseball Today newsletter. So I've got 6 names in the 109 to 156 range in ADP.
Let's go for it, and I'll add some that you don't
Okay,
mention.
you would like to hear them. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Grayson Rodriguez, number 112.9 in NFBC ADP in the month of February. Royce Lewis, 116.2. I love that price. Bo Bichette is moving up. He's up to 121.9. Still think that's a terrific value.
Still well within that range, yeah.
The Zach Gallen hate has gone too far. His ADP in the month of February is down to 129.3. I get it, but come on, guys. This was like a top 60 pick a year ago. Anyway, Brian Wu, love the upside here. I think there's like, just in terms of skill set, and I think, Saris has also made this comp, feels a little like baby Zach Wheeler with the approach and with the skill set and with the stuff. And it's just a question of whether he can stay upright. But I think Brian Wu's going to dominate. And then Eugenio Suarez, Scott, I can feel your hate. Gives you focus.
Makes you
But-
stronger.
Before the podcast, these guys were just ripping off Star Wars.
I was sharing with Chris my highly controversial opinion that episode 3 is the best Star Wars
I mean,
movie.
look, I recorded a 3-hour podcast with Nick Pollock about The Last Jedi. So I'm here for Star Wars hot takes.
We don't need to talk about that sequel trilogy, but episode 3 is the most quotable Star Wars movie, not always for the right reasons. And then we immediately started quoting it back and forth to each other because it's demonstrably true.
So yes.
So Bo Bichette obviously is the best value in this range.
Do it.
Oh my gosh.
Otherwise, I'm mostly finding pitchers here that I like, which fits within my strategy of this is toward the end of the good glob. So I'm loading up on pitchers here. I'm taking Joe Ryan if I need whip help. I'm taking Justin Steele if I need anything. I think he's a steal at this point in the draft.
131.8 in the month of February for Justin Steele. Also disrespectful.
Yeah, he might be the best pitcher value, just period.
Mm-hmm.
Jack Flaherty, I think the hate for him's gone a little too far. Just look at last year's numbers again. They will surprise you.
His stuff looked fine in his start today. Yeah,
they did. It did. I like Brandon Nimmo in this range. I think he's undervalued. Again, just kind of throw out the batting average for last year. And how far down did you say? Pick what?
156.
Nico Horner and Alec Bohm are right there at 155 and 156 on Fantasy Pros, and they're good batting average sources when they're hard to find.
All right, some names for me: Jason Dominguez, Jared Jones, Dylan Cruz, Xander Bogaerts, Bo Bichette, Justin Steele, and Stephen Kwan in a head-to-head points league. I do like in that range.
I will say, man, for a guy who was supposed to be a center fielder, Jason Dominguez looks so uncomfortable in the outfield. I don't know what happened, but he misplayed another ball today where he just
there's already been
like me in softball.
3 of those already in spring.
Yeah, he just looks so uncomfortable. It's wild.
Well, the Yankees might have their answer at DH with Stanton hurt to start the season. All right, guys, rapid fire, 10 minutes left. This one's from John. I know you all really like Jordan Westburg this year, but would love to know where you think he should be drafted in a 12-team daily lineup roto. No corner, no middle, and we use OBP instead of batting average. Would also be interested in knowing what you think his run/RBI number look like this year. I'm tempted to just wait 120 picks and take some combination of India, Shaw, or Brandon Lau, I guess, instead of Jordan Westberg. What do you think?
I guess the makes you stronger line was from Return of the Jedi, wasn't it?
No, it is
from episode 3.
Yeah, I think it's when Anakin's. It might be. I'm not sure now.
Ian McDermott is at his best in episode 3. That's okay.
He's throwing 100.
I forget what the question was. I'm sorry.
Jordan Westberg in OBP.
Yes, he's worse. He's worse. I would probably put him a tier lower.
Yeah, and like we like him a lot. He did have better walk rates in the minors for the most part. It kind of took a turn in 2023. Early on in his minor league career, it was more like 11%, 10% walk rates. Since then, it's been significantly lower, more closer to 8 to 7%. So that's a little concerning. And obviously, it was below 5% last year. So I think in an OBP league, he's certainly lower. And you could make the argument that, like, what's the difference between Brandon Lau and Jordan Westberg in an OBP league, right? Because the OBP should be fairly similar. It's 8 to 15 stolen bases, which is significant, but is that worth 120 spots in ADP?
You don't know how to do the rapid fire answer like I do, Chris. You don't know.
Scott, you let off your answer with Star Wars quotes again.
It is episode 3. I have confirmed.
Well, I think he says, give in to your anger in Return of the Jedi as well.
Yeah. All that anger and stuff. Yeah.
This next question is from Hugh. I play in a weekly head-to-head points league. We do not have a starting pitcher or relief pitcher requirement. We only start 7 pitchers. How would that impact your draft and lineup decisions in season? Would you start as many closers as you can, and weeks where you have a good 2-star pitcher, mix those in? I find myself stuck in between the last few seasons. I will have a great starting pitcher like Sale, Reagans, or Cease last year, but their 2-start impact is minimal these days, and sometimes those closers score more in a week for me than a 1-star guy like Chris Sale.
No, if it uses standard CBS point scoring, no, I just think I'd abandon closers altogether. It's possible that some closers could be worth starting over starting pitchers for the course of the season. I just think you're going to be horrible at predicting who that'll be. Emmanuel Clase A seems like a pretty safe bet, but I just think unless he falls tremendously, I just think I'd avoid it altogether and work in as many starting pitchers as I can. Approach it like I would any head-to-head points league, but just forget closers altogether.
This one is from Brett. Are there any post-hype or young players that you think could be a greater keeper lottery tickets to ride out a season? My initial thought would be a Kobe Mayo. Originally, I was thinking Andrew Painter, but I think he's not as primed for playing time this season. My league is pretty invested and has a good eye for talent with most young or high-end players off the board. Any thoughts on end of the draft cheap keepers would be appreciated.
So I would actually think Andrew Painter kind of makes perfect sense for this, because if you're looking at him specifically as a keeper, his 2025 value is likely to be sort of muted, right? Like, he won't make his debut until July. Who knows if there will be a rotation spot for him in July. But 2026 should be all systems go. And
yeah,
he is, if it wasn't for the injury, I think he would be the top pitching prospect in baseball.
I mean, I think most any prospect who is on the verge of graduating would be perfect for this. Roman Anthony, obviously Christian Campbell.
Yeah, those guys who were not sure if they're going to debut early.
Right.
So
Bubba Chandler, Quinn Matthews.
Yeah.
Maybe they get pushed up in your league, or maybe you can't load up on so many of them because it would hamstring you in the short term. I get that, but post-hype guys, you can't be sure they're going to help you in the like if we were sure they were going to help you in the short term, then they would rank higher than the late rounds. Some post-hype guys, I look at like Noel V. Marte. You mentioned Kobe Mayo already.
Chase DeLauder
was the one I was thinking of.
Chase DeLauder, sure. I mean, he's still a top prospect, but maybe he's a little post-hype at this point.
Jordan Lawler.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a top 10 prospect, but I think everyone's kind of tired of him.
Yeah. I think a lot of those names make sense. A similar question to the last one. This one is from Ryan. I play in a 12-team 5x5 roto auction keeper, 1-year keeper limit. No AL Central. What did the AL Central do to you? That's just get rid of them. Get rid of all those players. Could you go over a list of players to stash that could be flipped at the trade deadline? I'm thinking injured or suspended players that go for discounts at the draft and will provide great keeper value. So Strider, Manaea, Painter, etc. I'm looking to trade them to tanking owners for their stars down the line. I think, it's weird. The first name that came to mind was Shane Bieber, but there's no AL Central. So Yuri Perez.
No AL Central.
Yeah, Yuri Perez, Andrew Painter.
Andrew Painter. We're just going to keep citing him. Yeah.
I was going to say Bieber and John Means, but they're both on the Guardians. Bradish should be back later in the season.
Kyle Bradish, Orioles.
And looked like one of the best pitchers in the world when he was healthy last year.
Uh-huh.
It's a fair one.
It's mostly pitchers like that, right? Hitters. Yeah. I mean, Zach Neto doesn't feel that discounted that it's going to be a great advantage to stash him. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. Bieber would be the best one, but Yuri Perez probably from a keeper context would be the best one.
Yep. This one's from Kevin Ahoy, Andrew, Gregory, and Starling.
Is this like
Pirates outfielders from a decade ago?
Yeah, is this like the Pirates outfield the last time they made the playoffs?
McCutcheon, Polanco, and Marte. Yeah, I think so.
I was randomly watching the last Pirates playoff win. I had completely forgotten Justin Morneau was on the Pirates that year.
Did not remember
Totally random.
Yeah. I play in a 10-team head-to-head points league on ESPN and have noticed some massive discrepancies in their ADPs compared to CBS, Fantasy Pros, and even your rankings. Most notably, Jazz Chisholm in the 10th, Elly and Julio in the 7th, and Corey Seager in the 5th. I know there's bound to be some variance based on platform and format, but this seems insane to me. How far are you willing to let them slide, taking advantage of the discount before the risk of losing them?
No, this is appropriate. And he explains why in the rest of his email. The scoring is different and it makes a huge difference. In two significant ways on the hitting side. Steals are worth 1 point instead of the 2, like on CBS. So that crushes base stealers. Strikeouts, I mentioned this before, strikeouts worth a full -1 instead of just -0.5 on CBS. So that cuts the player pool, the pool of usable players in half. And you can see how somebody like Elly and Jazz Chisholm, guys with big strikeout issues, and the strength is they steal a lot of bases, you can see how it absolutely destroys them in that scoring format. I think it's a bad scoring format. But it is the scoring format you've chosen. So you just have to understand that player values are going to be different. He didn't mention this, but I believe I've also seen this with ESPN that they award 10 points per save as opposed to 7. And so closers tend to go really high in ESPN points leagues, which would change a lot of the analysis I've given on drafting closers in points leagues, including from a question earlier on the show here, if that guy happens to play in a standard scoring ESPN league.
Yeah. I have, let's see, I could pull this up, I think, pretty quickly. The scoring system is 5 points for a save on ESPN. That's a standard.
I thought it was
2 points for a win, -2 for a loss. Interesting.
What are innings?
3, but you get 1 per strikeout.
Okay. That's
maybe they changed it since I last saw for saves because there were too many complaints or something, or maybe I just had it wrong in the first place.
Yeah. I did run this point system on the Fangraphs auction calculator using ATC projections. Julio Rodriguez came out as the 36th best hitter. Elly De La Cruz was 47th and Jazz was 66th.
Yep.
And again, that's only for hitters. That's not all players. So they do lose quite a bit of value in that format. From David, I just finished listening to your pod on auction leagues. I have participated in quite a few, and one of my nomination strategies, especially at the beginning, is to nominate players who are injured or injury prone. I know I won't buy them, and they may well cost their purchasers more than they return. This year, DeGrom, Strider, Acuna, Trout, and Felix Bautista were on my list.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a type of player or a list of players you don't like and don't want to spend your money on, I think nominating them is fine. Whether it's guys who are injured or I think that's a perfectly reasonable strategy.
And if those are the players you've decided you don't want, that's fine. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think sometimes if they're nominated at the right point, an injury-prone player can come at a really nice discount. You don't want too many of them, obviously, but I could see taking Trout in an auction league because he goes for 60% of his expected value.
Mm-hmm. I think the hope is if you do it early on when people have money, they'll still wind up spending more than they should. But yeah, I mean, obviously, if it happens later on in the draft and that's the point where everyone's kind of slowing down, then maybe they come at a discount. So it's again, auctions it's just such a feel thing too, like within the draft and knowing when to throw players out that you don't want. This last one is from Jeff. What player who is currently not a first round pick is most likely to be a first round pick in 2026? Chris, I believe you wrote an article about this exact thing.
Yeah, I'm going to try to pull it up. I mean,
it's probably Churio. He's borderline first round now.
Yeah.
So maybe that's too easy.
I think
probably him.
I think Jackson Merrill could.
Yeah, he could.
He's got to run more.
Butler could.
Lawrence Butler made my list. Jackson Churio and Jackson Merrill both made my list. Wyatt Langford made my list.
James Wood, maybe.
James Wood was on there.
Luis Robert technically could. I don't see it happening, but it's within the realm of possibility for him. And of course, you could say guys who've been first rounders in the not so distant past, like Corey Seager,
Ronald Acuna,
Trey Turner.
Yeah, Acuna is probably the real answer, right?
Jazz Chisholm.
Technicality.
I can see a world in which Jacob deGrom pitches 170 innings and is a first rounder next year. It's not likely.
Garrett Crochet,
Lawrence Butler, and then Trey Turner was one of the last guys I put on there. Also, I put Roki Sasaki there. That's probably not going to happen though.
It's too cute, Chris. You got too cute in your own article.
Oh, thank you.
All right, Chris.
These cherub cheeks.
Chris, are you making the pick? What do we got?
Hidden by a beard.
No, man. I don't know. Come on.
You're telling me you didn't use this entire podcast to just research which prospect you wanted to take in Scott White's dynasty?
I've been thinking about Star Wars quotes.
All right. Well, I tried.
Was the cherub cheeks thing a Star Wars quote?
No, that's just a reference to my cherub cheeks
that are hidden by a beard, so nobody can enjoy.
No, they sit atop the beard.
Scott, you can't win this one, man. We need the Strider stash at least.
It's not going to happen.
All right. Well, I tried.
You tried.
We tried.
We're going to wrap there. For Scott and Chris, I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning into Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. And we will be back again tomorrow with a bonus podcast. Bye-bye.